All right.
Parry Talks. Welcome back. Lockdown edition for Sydney people. Volume 2, really. We've been pretty lucky, but for our Naarm Melbourne friends, it's been a long ride and they're in round 5. But I think the silver lining in all this is that I pull my finger out and I start doing interviews again because I've got nothing else to do. And we take this bad boy in a state, no longer confined by Sydney's inner west. We're taking it global and we're going across to the second best city in Australia and Melbourne with someone I, and cheesy as it is to say, look up to a lot. She's done so much. She's based in Melbourne, of course. You probably know her best for a DJing career at In2stellar Fugitives across the country. She also throws parties as Neurotique Erotiq or whatever. I can't pronounce interesting words.
Erotic.
And of course, starting database and community hub WIP project. And of course, we'll be diving into each of those individually. So if you're not fully across them, you definitely will be after this chat. But the one, the only, DJ Sarah. How are you this morning?
What an intro. I'm good. I'm better after that. That was really lovely. Thanks,
Man,
Parry.
it's the only part of the program I script, the intro. Because you want to get it right,
Beautiful.
you know.
I've got to say, I'm also a big fan. So this is a real moment. I love that we're in each other's merch as well. Repping.
Yeah, but I paid for mine. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, we each have our own little shindigs going. And I think just let's just start on a side note as well. It's always so
Sure.
interesting how people in, I don't know if you reflect on this as well, but people in dance scenes are so obsessed with just starting new things where it's like, oh,
Oh
I've got
my
an
God.
extra half an hour of time. Let's, start a t-shirt brand.
Totally, totally. I think it can be a trap actually. Like I think it feels so good to start something new and like exciting that it's kind of like changing your DJ name or like starting a different party or stuff like that. Like I think that's something that I used to do a lot. Like come starting new things and I realized I was like, fuck, I don't mean, sorry, I'm swearing already. The start part is like try not to swear. I'm like, oh. um, I think, yeah, I started so many new things and then I realized that like you kind of just have to stick a few out because otherwise they're not going to go anywhere. But people really do love starting new things or filling in every second of time.
Are you one of those people that has like those like you think of a new project in bed one night and you make an Instagram account for it the next morning and like make the mood board for it and then wait for it to just like explode? Because I'm one of those people.
I'm a little bit more considered these days because I feel like I've watched so many of those um, start and then fizzle out. And like so these days, I think it's interesting when you're kind of growing up or when you first get into a creative industry, everyone's like, take every opportunity and say yes and blah blah blah. And for me, I got to a point maybe 2 years ago where I was like, I have to say no. I have to learn how to say no because I can't do everything. Um, and yeah, so I try not to start new things unless they're really considered and unless I think that they're going to have some sort of longevity because yeah, that ran me to the ground initially.
And it's no surprise that learning how to say no is such a common like conversation that people have in creative industries because you are taught so early just to be like grab everything,
Yeah, I like there was a point. I'm way more confident in it now. Like I'm just like, sorry, I can't. Thanks for thinking of me. And leaving, it's good to leave the door open because you never know if you might want to take that opportunity later. But yeah, it was something that when I first had to start saying no, I'd feel like guilty. Like I'd be like, oh, this is an opportunity and I should be taking it and I'm not. Therefore, I'm ungrateful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good conversation to have. But yeah, it's a common one with creatives.
I think, well, that makes us in the Parry Talks team and the Parry Talks community even more grateful that you said yes to this conversation today.
Yeah, yeah. So be grateful. No.
um, I think a good way to start it off is just to, and like, you know, the C word, we don't want to talk about it too much, but it has to be considered, obviously, just given the times we're living in. Um, and it's probably the most interesting time ever to be involved in the dance community. So I just want to ask, like, how have your energy levels been in the past couple of months? Like, what do you do, or what's the challenge been for yourself in just staying positive and like keeping optimistic?
Um, it's funny because we're currently in day 2 of lockdown, our 5th lockdown, in Naarm. And for me, this is peak time. This is always when I peak. We get locked down. I'm like, yes, I'm going to relax. It's going to be good. I'm going to do all these productive things. And it always starts on a high where I'm kind of excited, and then have this like dramatic crash on about day 5, accompanied by some sort of existential crisis, anxiety, and all of that. So, yeah, right now I feel really good. But it's been so hard. Like the really long lockdown we had last year is kind of like a blackout for me. Um, like it all just kind of merged into one. I was still working from home and not really enjoying what I was doing because my whole job revolves around music and events, and I just felt consumed by all of it. Um, so yeah, I had a really hard time. Like classic, got into running, like just tried to get outside a lot. But yeah, it was really hard. And one thing I find really challenging as well is that even if I'm feeling good, being around other people who are struggling kind of weighs on you as well, and it's like a group struggle that you're involved in. So even if you're having a good time, knowing that everyone else isn't, it can be hard. So yeah, it's been really up and down. I've really, this year, like things are a lot better because we've just had times out of lockdown and even been able to like go out a little bit, or do music or hang out with friends. But in like last year was so bad.
Yeah. And a bit of a interesting question, I think, for me, because I think I see this quite differently now, is that obviously so much of dance music in terms of, you know, motivation, community impact comes from that dance floor space. So I feel like we've seen so much innovation in ways to like bring the community together despite not having that space. So like, what have you seen that's changed, or what have you been like in keeping an eye on, or what do you think that a silver lining could be for the dance community out of, you know, the chaos?
I think, like, I think to be honest, the silver lining will be our appreciation for everything we have. I think it's going to be really cool to see the the kind of roaring 20s when we get out of this, when people are back partying. And you can already see it happening overseas. You can see it here in things like ticket sales and in the events that have happened that are selling out. So I think the silver lining is actually a little, I think it's on the horizon, but still quite far away. But I do think it's going to be really, really exciting, and we'll all appreciate things a little bit more. But I, I think at the same time, like, you can create your own silver linings, like I have, for sure, but it doesn't really make up for kind of how hard this has been for so many people, and decimated so many companies and venues, and yeah,
Yeah.
like it's been pretty bad. But not to say that there hasn't been good things coming out of it, but that's like the main thing, I think.
Yeah. I think people became so, I think there was a period definitely in like Warong, Sydney, where it was obvious people were getting complacent just with
Mm.
things, like small things, or like we realized we got in, and like I'm saying me specifically, like we got into this mind frame that we were the center of the world, like this niche underground community was the center of the world, and we were the only thing that mattered and only thing to consider.
Yes.
And then like having a moment like this is like, we are the smallest little dot on like
Yeah. No
Australia's
one
piece of
cares
paper.
about you. Not
Exactly.
you, but like, no
Yeah.
one, yeah.
So it's important just to reflect and be like, we are so small. So like, what's really important about the things we do?
Totally. In a life sense as well, like what's important, is, yeah, I think we are in a bubble, and it's sort of cliche. But yeah, I think realizing, yeah, that we're not the center of the universe. Yeah.
And I think and like internet from a dance perspective, the thing that made that so clear to me was seeing Perth Summer.
Oh my God. I was there.
Yeah. And then I was like, wait, what? The
Yeah.
West has a scene? And I was like,
Yeah.
see, it's just like stuff like that. Like I'd never even considered that. And now seeing that so clearly, it's like, oh, I'm so ignorant to what actually happens across the
Totally.
country.
One, I mean, I don't know if this is a positive for everyone, but I definitely feel more connected to the other states. And I think that's a really lovely thing, because we're all kind of just living in parallel universes, really. Like it's Sydney, Perth. I haven't really been to Canberra much, but I know they have some cool stuff going on there. Even like over in New Zealand, like I think because we've all been like looking outward, you start to see where all these, like Alice Springs popping off.
Always has been.
Like, yeah, it's just cool to, yeah, I think looking outward has been really good. I mean, for me personally, it kind of came at an interesting time. Like Georgia and I were about to go to Europe and play a few shows, and we wanted to go for a few months, but I sort of wanted to stay at my job for longer, and I didn't feel ready to leave. And I was just going to go for a few weeks, and I wasn't really sure. And then this all happened, and it was like decisions got made for me. Like there's something kind of nice about surrendering to your fate, like
Yeah.
this is it. So it's beyond my control.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it? And it limits your choices, and it limits what you can do. So I think the limitation in a way was actually, or has been, like a really interesting experience. And to see, and when I reflect at what came out of that time, like it was really, really solidifying my job, and getting enough experience there, so that I always wanted to be there at my job for like 2 years. It's been 2.5 years now, and I'm about to leave to pursue music, my dreams. But I had that time where I was stuck here, so I had to work, and that was actually really great. And then like WIP basically was born in lockdown, and I had time to work on that stuff. And then, yeah, so it's interesting
Definitely.
that these things sort of were born out of the stillness in a way.
I love the point you made about it felt like everyone like instead of it being individual scenes, it sort of became one for a period there.
Yeah,
Like everyone was
totally.
just like, and it's like, wait, what? Like, and I
But
was all
everyone was in Perth, and then some people in Sydney, and then like some people from Sydney were in Melbourne, but like it would just all feel. I feel like it's gonna stay connected. I hope.
hopefully. I always think about like who would be the because we are all living in parallel universes, like who
Oh
would
yeah,
be the equivalent people? Like
yeah.
who is the DJ Sarah?
I have that with Jess Negus, Mintox.
Shout outs.
I was in Perth with her in Borlu, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, we were just like, we're each other.
Yeah, I see that. Let's take it all the way back to a young Sarah, baby Sarah.
Oh,
Where did that passion for electronic or dance music come from initially, before being involved at any level?
I wasn't one of those kids that grew up on a diet of, you know, this and that. My parents liked music, like would watch Rage on a Saturday morning. My mum loves the Eurythmics, and like my dad loves Sade and like jazz. And now his favorite DJ is Late Night Tough Guy. He like only listens to disco edits. And I'll be like, Dad, he's like, this is house. I'm like, yeah, it's house. But like, I'll try show him something that's kind of similar. And he's like, no. It's like Dr. Packer, Late Night Tough Guy. But like, so they're into music, but they're not, I used to, when people would be like, how'd you get into DJing? I would be like, I don't know. I'd kind of be shy about the fact that I wasn't like raised in some like musical household by these arty parents and stuff. But now like it's important to acknowledge that. I started partying like when I was 16 and 17 and going, huh?
Okay. Crazy.
Maybe 17. I went clubbing for the first time. And then when I left school, I was a sicko. Like I would go to Revolver every Thursday and every Sunday. And when I say sicko, I mean like I was home in bed by like 2 or 3, like at mum and dad's. And like to do that again, that would be wholesome for me now. But yeah, I just like started going to clubs. I loved dancing, and just hanging out with my friends. And yeah, it just, I don't know, like I was always interested in it. I was always really interested in samples, and like covers and like hearing tracks that were like had samples that I knew, and even things like hearing covers on the radio and being like, what was the original of that? Oh wow, this producer also did this. And I kind of became quite obsessed with all these connections and really fascinated by it. And then I was leaving school. In school, I used to say I wanted to work in the music industry, and people would be like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to be like in it.
You manifested that.
I know. I'm really reflected on this recently. But yeah, I was just always really interested in the whole world that it brought. And when I say that, it wasn't like this was, you know, I also wanted to like be an archaeologist or like a dancer or like all this other stuff. But I did used to want to work in music. I wanted to work in musical radio. I wanted to be a radio host.
Sick. I just like, if someone says like, when I grow up, I want to be a radio host, keep that person close because they're probably absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I was just fascinated by that. And then I was enrolled in business. I was like, I'll just go to uni and do business. I want to work in the creative industries. I don't know what it is. At one point I wanted to work in fashion, which like, honestly, if you saw my wardrobe, like that's just embarrassing. And then I was like, I'll just go do a business degree because then at least wherever I go, like I'll know how to try and make money. You
Facts.
know?
Cold hard facts. I think a super interesting thing from that point is that Naarm or Melbourne's dance scene is so accessible compared to, I think, what happens here, where it's like you're not going to get introduced to extremely incredible dance music unless you're like, if you're born in sort of my 2-year age group, unless you're like, you've been partying for like 6 months and you met this one guy who knows this one promoter who's like, yeah, we're booking this crazy artist. So I think, and like, maybe I'm making too big a point of it, but I think that's such a special thing that you can go to a club and you can see the best DJs in the world by chance without having to, like, the if you know, you know thing.
Totally. I mean, we like Novel used to throw these parties here where they would just have like every like international DJ that would come over, they would be doing a party with, and we would just go to everything. It'd be like, oh, if Novel's running it, we'll go.
Yeah.
And that introduced me to, I mean, at this point, like I was listening to like, you know, like music that I probably wouldn't play now, like really tech housey vibe. But at that time, like that's what was really cool and in. we know tech house gets a bad rap, but like, um, and then I went to Europe. This is so cliche, but I literally went on a gap year with my best school friends and went to like these clubs and parties that, you know, like literally in going to Berlin and like going to partying in Prague and Amsterdam. It was just wild. Like I was like, oh, whoa, okay, like I get it, you know?
Definitely.
And then I think that then I got home from Europe and I was like, wow, that was cool. And then I went to strawberry fields with one friend. We didn't know anyone there except our friend's older sister. And we just went, like, I was so naive. Like, I just did, we took like a slab of Elevates, which are like, for anyone who doesn't know, energy drinks with alcohol in them. Like, they should, I think they actually are illegal now. Like, it was just so, they are so messed up, especially for like little tiny bodies. We like took this slab of Elevates. And then everyone's like, oh, and I was like, who is playing at this? I don't know any of these artists. And everyone's like, Moody Man, we've got to see Moody Man. I'm like, who's Moody Man? And then like he was playing at like 5 o'clock at like the main stage. And so we like walked over. I was wearing like a little bandeau top and like had my hair in plaits and like a little skirt I got from like some vintage store, barefoot. And
Barefoot as well.
I know, like not much has changed really. And then we went and saw Moody Man, and this was like a moment for me. Like it still is so sticks out so clearly in my mind, where he played Heaven's in the backseat of my Cadillac, let me take you there. And I was like looking around and like the dust, this sounds so like it's actually cliche, but this is what happened. The dust was like kicked up and the sun was setting, and I was looking around at all these people just having the best time, and I was like, oh, cool, all right, like this is sick, I get it. Like, and I went home from that festival and I was like, I want to work in music. And I tried to change my course to music industry at RMIT. I tried to get out of business and into music. I missed the deadline by like 6 hours, which is just so me. Like, I'm shocking with admin. And they're like, sorry, too late to change. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do a business degree. And so then I went to uni and did business, which I still haven't finished my degree. So I ended up hanging out like 2 years into it. I started hanging out with all the music industry kids and like going to some of their lectures and like became really good friends with all of them. Started like did DJ class as an elective, and that's how I learned to DJ. Like at RMIT.
Oh my god, that's sick.
In this DJ class, it was my only ever HD. Sounds really talented.
What were you mixing in the DJ class?
Oh my god, it just was. So my younger brother Hugh, was really shout outs to Hugh, was really into techno, and like at this point, you know, it's taken me a long time to start making up my own mind and being like, this is cool, like this is what I like, and I think that's actually a really hard place to get to, with so much noise, you know, around what's cool and what's not. So at this point, I was taking a lot of inspiration from my brother, who's really into techno, like really heavy techno. Like, and so in this class, like, I don't know, we were just playing like, I can't even remember the artists, but like real like industrial warehouse.
Yeah, I know exactly
like, Bjarki and like Anna and like this kind of stuff, you know, in this like little DJ class in RMIT. But I met Georgia Farry there, in this class, but who's Baby G, and she's a producer DJ now. She was booking at the Gasso, and she's like incredible. And we were partners. We were DJ partners in this class.
Back
to back. Did our first ever gig, 20-minute set at Workshop Bar as our final assessment. And then we started running parties together, her and I, and then we had a DJ duo together.
Amazing.
And that's like where it all started. So it's weird how everything sort of falls into place, but Yeah.
Um, a lot of so much to unpack there. So many moments. What was your tutor like? Like the tutor would have been like an
Oh,
absolute angel, right?
beautiful man, Ed Montano, who passed away a few years ago,
Oh,
which is just so devastating because like he he was this really cool British guy who was always wearing like band t-shirts and like had this really amazing attitude. He got cancer and was so sick, but like he was still like teaching until he died. And it was really, really tragic, like left behind two little boys and this incredible legacy of
yeah.
all these, you know, all these DJs like Georgia Bird did the class as well. Like our friend Asha, who's also a DJ now. And then like this class, I think Mike Callender teaches it now, who's like a real OG DJ. I actually went back and did like a guest lecture or something, which is
Sick.
yeah, yeah. And apparently they use Interstellar as like a they're like, oh, you know, the DJ class at RMIT, Interstellar did it. Like as like being alumni.
That's such a boss. Well,
Yeah, but he was an amazing guy. And I wish he got to see like more of kind of what he actually kickstarted, how many careers he kickstarted. Because I
yeah.
remember him just being like, you know, some of you might end up playing a bar, maybe, you know, like the first day, and then all these kids went off to like become DJs. It's really
Yes.
cool.
No, I'm not, because we could talk about this guy for years, I think, or this class for years. Um, Speaking of formative moments, because this is where we're at those formative moment periods.
Yeah.
Who are those initial community leaders for you who either like gave you a step up or you just saw what they were doing, you know, in the scene and thought, shit, they're doing cool things. They make me want to be more involved, or you just respected them a lot in those early stages? That was a bit eye-opening.
CC Disco was the most pivotal person. I was already DJing and but I was struggling a little bit with like confidence and this idea of being a woman, which partly through experience, partly through like people making it a thing too at that time. This is like 20, must have been like 2015. Um, and yeah, one of my friends one night was like, "Oh, you should just hit her up." And I was like, "No, I don't know." And they're like, "Yeah, just hit her up." And like they hit her up and they're like, "Oh, my friend Sarah like wants to chat about being a DJ, blah blah blah. Like, would you be down?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure, get her to email me." And I sent her this massive email with like all these questions and all this stuff. And she wrote back like the most amazing responses, just like just so helpful. And the fact that she even wrote back to me meant so much. And the last piece of advice she had was just like, just record mixes, just like record something, put it on SoundCloud. And then I was like, okay. And I like recorded a mix and like sent it to her, and she was so positive about it. And it was just so helpful having someone be like, do this, like just put it out there. So she was someone. And then I looked up to everybody, like all the locals, that a lot of people who are now my friends, like Penny and Millie and like Andy Garvey was another big one. Like I just thought she was so cool. And like I hit her up one day on Facebook being like, "Hi Andy, my name's Sarah. And like I DJ and I saw you're coming down to Melbourne. Like, would you want to grab a beer or something?" She was like, "Oh, hey Sarah, like I know who you are. Yeah, sure." And then we ended up like partying in Ivanica, and like now we're like really, really good friends, which is funny. But yeah, so probably Cece, Andy.
Garvey's the greatest.
I know.
Me, I don't know if you listen to the podcast with me and Jess, I mean Tox, but we're talking about if there was like a parliament, like a DJ's parliament of like who'd be like the prime minister, the health minister, and like the unanimous decision was Garvey has to be PM.
Oh my god, what a dream world to live in. Garvey for PM.
Yeah,
She's incredible.
and it's no surprise that name comes up in pretty much every conversation that I have, or like every time I ask that question of that tilt, it's like consistent. And I was
Wow.
like almost waiting for you to say it. I was gonna say, oh. Who else will she throw in?
Yeah.
Um,
And
sort
so
of,
many other people, like my best friend Scotty, who plays as Roy Mills, was like, and he's in London now, killing it. But he was just so helpful for me. Like he taught me how to mix vinyl and like just was so supportive and helped me with like setting up DJ decks or like just all these little things. He was really, really had a lot of impact on me as well too.
definitely. Sort of just fast forwarding a bit on your DJ career. Um,
Yeah.
what sort of like moments, whether watching a DJ or practices, do you credit to your success as a DJ so far? Like, is it partying and going out and being consistent? Is it digging? Is it just having your hands on being involved? Like, what do you credit the most to just where you've come in your taste, selections, whatever, skills, anything like that?
Wow, that's such a big question because I think it's a little bit of everything. Um, I, oh, wow. I've never really thought about that.
Just gas yourself up. That's what I'm
It,
doing. I want you to gas yourself up.
honestly, like it's the hustle. It's like saying at the start, and I know we just talked about saying no, but at the start, I would just say yes to everything. I'd be like, you never know who's going to be at a gig and see you play. You never know like what's going to come out of meeting this person from here and stuff. And I really did like do everything and do things without like I think the biggest thing is trying to remove ego. So trying to step past like, oh, this isn't cool or whatever. And you know, you do at one point in your career have to start saying no. But before that, like you just have to suck it up and like do everything. And I enjoyed it. Like I was, but there were points where I was just like Ubering around Chapel Street playing all these like dodgy bars like every weekend, every week just to practice and just to you know, meet new people. And so I think, yeah, just sort of not judging yourself for doing all different stuff it is really important, and doing things not expecting anything in return because it's still going to come back. Like I intro a lot of people to people or like you know, try and help other people out now, but at the start, yeah, I was just so keen.
Yeah.
Like I just was keen to do everything, and like every time someone would message me, I would like a promoter, I'd like look them up, I'd look up all the other DJs playing on the lineup, I'd like listen to their music, I'd like go early to watch them and like stay late to watch the others, and I'd introduce myself and like just making the most of every single opportunity.
Definitely.
Was like, yeah, just doing everything with kind of enthusiasm and energy, um, which kind of comes naturally to me, so it's lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, just making the most of every opportunity is probably the key, and finding the opportunities myself.
Yeah.
Like just hitting people up, being like, I want to play a party. Here's my mix. Like when we like headline Daydreams last Jan, and I went back. I went to message, like go on the Facebook page or something, and like the message box popped up, and it was like, you know, when you like message
Yeah.
a friend or something, and there was a message in there that I had sent with like, and I was like, what is this? And it was me in like 2017 being like, hi Daydreams, my name's Sarah, like I really want to play, like here's a mix or something. And they were just like, thanks DJ Sarah, we'll check it out. Just never heard back. And then like 3 years later we were playing, and I was like, that's so cute, you know, like
Yeah.
and that's kind of stuff I would do all the time.
Amazing. And this is like, this might sound as like a funny question, but I mean it in a serious way. Oh, not really a funny question, but you know what I mean. Um, I think, and like doing like this thing, like with the DJing or just like giving so much back, as selfish as it sounds, when you give so much back, it can be so isolating and lonely. Like I feel like sometimes, even though you do have an incredible amount of people around you and stuff, but if you're working on something by yourself for so long, it can get really hard. But you do obviously DJ as In2stellar Fugitives a lot. So like what just makes DJing with a close friend so special, and like what made Georgia special from the start, that it was like, this can be a big focus for me or for us?
Yeah, it's a good point. Like it can be lonely, and I used to feel like isolated, and I used to feel um alone. I rarely feel like that now because things are in a place where every time I kind of give something back, it just feels so good to me that I don't even have to like talk about it or tell anyone because I've got so many people supporting me and so many good things going on. It's a really privileged place to be in where I am
Yeah.
now compared to a few years ago. But Georgia, a lot of stuff that's happened in my career and life like has been quite serendipitous, and like um I'm very like, although I go out and like create my own opportunities, I'm also a little bit like go with the flow and just try and like um yeah, allow myself to just roll with whatever is coming my way because generally that works out the best. But Georgia and the best thing about having Georgia is that we share every experience. So like all of the highs, you have someone to enjoy that with. And then the lows aren't that low because you just have someone there to sort of talk yourself out of it. You know, like if we have like play a bad set or like something happens before it can like even penetrate your deep soul, you have someone there to be like, oh yeah, like that was messed up, like blah blah blah, you know, and you kind of unpack it. And usually in private, like before we even go and like talk to our friends about it or something, we've unpacked it and we've kind of moved past it, tackled it together, and then moved on. And so with all the negative stuff, just having that person there it makes so much of a difference. You don't harbor things in the same way. And then also like having someone to celebrate with and, you know, enjoy all those amazing moments with you and understand what exactly what you just went through if you have something really amazing happen is just so worth it. And obviously it comes with challenges working with someone, especially on something like music. So, but yeah, for us, it's great.
Beautiful. See, lovely. Now let's get on to probably the least structured part of this conversation when we talk about the WIP project, because I feel like I'm just going to be shooting from the hip.
All right.
um, it obviously started as a spreadsheet. You've told the story 1,000 times. If you haven't, like, if you're not fully across what, like, the intro to the WIP project, what it is, what it does, search on Google "purple sneakers WIP project." Evie wrote an awesome piece, just, you know, with the intro of it and just the foundations of it, so that now we don't have to waste time on that. We can just jump straight in. But initially for that spreadsheet, I feel like one of the main problems with it's when people don't book normal artists. I think so much of the time it's an attitude thing. It's a laziness. It's the excuse of like, oh, I just didn't know any normal acts. So we're starting that spreadsheet just like a finger up, being like, literally look at this thing. Was it just out of that pure frustration in response to that sort of attitude?
Literally, like you hit the nail on the head. It was just born. It started like even before the spreadsheet. It started as me being in Facebook comments where people would be like, "Oh, we didn't really know any blah blah," blah. Or like people would be like, "Do you know any female DJs?" I would write these like just like lists. Like I'd be like, "Hey,
Sick.
this," and like and I would found myself doing that so often that I had like notes in my phone, and then it just kept happening. I had the same conversations with the same people. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm using so much of my energy to have pointless conversations that aren't going anywhere. No one's listening to me, especially at the point I was in my career. Like no one cared what I thought. And I was like, okay, for the people that do want to, or are saying that they want to make a change, I'm just going to put this all in one spot so that they can access this if they, you know, if they're like, it was kind of a two-pronged thing. It was like, one, it completely debunks the theory that there's no females or non-binary, gender non-conforming people to book. because they're all there presented to you. So firstly, that just like expels that myth completely.
Yeah.
And also for the people who I would hope are the majority, and I do think the majority of people are open-minded and want to make change. For those that do want that and for some reason don't know how to find their own artists on SoundCloud or like the internet, whatever. For those that it's a little bit too hard for them, there's the resource for you.
Yeah.
So make the change, like make the change. So like, and on behalf of like all of those who are on the spreadsheet, just providing them with a bit more of a platform or another place just to get discovered. So it just felt like, I think a lot of issues that we have in the music industry and in our kind of left-leaning woke society, this bubble that we're in, a lot of these issues, there's so much chatter, like it's just talk.
Yeah.
Walking into an echo chamber, canceling people for this and that, like just this whole like, and sometimes you got to look at, and I not that I'm not about that, but there's also got to be practical resources available to create change.
Definitely.
And people need to focus on the objective
Definitely.
of like, what are we trying to do here and how can we do that practically.
I think one of the super interesting things that I think me and some friends have been really thinking about now with, because I feel like people thought of diversity on lineups being like, if we get half the lineup or the whole undercard to be non-male DJs, then we've ticked our diversity box. And then now people are obviously thinking a lot more about booking people of color on lineups as well. And it's so hard to measure like effectiveness of a tool like that or just changing attitudes, because it's almost impossible to know if a promoter is genuinely thinking about how can I create this event so it's accessible and inviting to everyone versus how can I book this event so I don't get cancelled or I don't get, looked down upon. So it's like, it's hard to ever truly know where someone sits because of those two things. Like, it's
a really good point. There's almost so much to unpack in that itself, because firstly, I think the truth will always come to light. Like over time, you have to trust that the people who are not being authentic will be uncovered.
Yeah.
Like it'll all come to the surface when they do get in trouble for something, the way they react to it. If
100%.
they're like, oh no, if they get defensive, or if they're like, oh my God, whoops, we were trying, we'll make a change.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the other thing though is this question that I don't have the answer to. Is it still a good thing regardless of their intention?
Yeah, exactly. That's
potentially like there are promoters out there who are just booking women to not get cancelled, but that is still a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
And so we need to kind of, and knowing that that's a step in the right direction, and then knowing that eventually if they're not coming from the right place that they'll get found out or slip up somewhere else. So it's almost like not worth trying to work out where people are coming from, because it's like, well, it's usually pretty obvious.
Yeah,
I think usually tell.
I think one of the most interesting things about that is the impact it has on the DJs themselves. Like I have friends that have been involved so explicitly as what's the word, like inclusion, equality bookings. Like it's so obvious that the only reason they're on that, even though they're incredible and I'm not going to name names.
Tokenistic.
Yeah, even though they're incredible DJs and they deserve to be on that lineup, they know that the only reason they're on that lineup is because they're of use for the promoter's diversity quota. So I think that's one of the big negatives of like not knowing the intention of a promoter, because
you're like, so right. Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. It's really hard. It's really tricky, because like when I say that, oh, it's still a positive, like, well, am I thinking about the impact on the individuals who are the kind of pawns in this game? Like maybe no. So maybe that's actually not the right attitude to have, because there's individuals who are getting affected by this.
But at the same time, sorry, did I cut you off?
No,
I
no,
can't tell it's
no,
Zoom.
no.
I think the interesting thing about that is, as well, though, it's what you're talking about earlier. It's like, if someone, even though they do feel like a token booking, if they go play the show and there's a really good promoter in the crowd being like, oh, I love these DJs. And then like, so, but like, obviously it's not ideal.
I think if you as an and I've had this, like, I got booked once, like explicitly told, we got told by the venue we needed to book a woman, so we're gonna, and I was like, thanks guys, like what? I was like, what? Like okay, and but I still said yes.
Yeah.
And like, but that was like on me, and I was like, well, whatever, I'm gonna rock up and show you that I'm like just as good as you guys. And I had the energy and capacity at that present moment to do that. I think it's like, it's got to be case by case for the individuals who may feel like, yeah, they're being booked tokenistically. And I think as you like progress in your career and in the music industry, you kind of, I don't know, it's hard, and it really sucks that it's this way, but it's almost like you have to make sacrifices early on to get to where you want to be, so that you can have more voice and more impact. And I hate that it's like that. But like when I first started DJing, I would literally say yes to everything, even if I was the only woman on the lineup and it didn't sit right with me. I'd just be like, do you know what? I'm just gonna do this because all the artists playing are way bigger than me. I'm gonna get to play on this slot before this big headliner, like da 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 da. This is like 3 or 4 years ago. And now when the same bookers try to book me, I'll be like, nah, sorry, like sort it out and then we'll do it. And has so much more power and impact. And that's a personal choice that I made. And I think a lot of people may not, it might not sit right with them. And maybe I was naive and young enough to just do that.
Yeah.
It was like the timing, I didn't know enough, and I was like, oh, whatever, and I think now I'd really struggle to do that. But it was almost like a conscious choice.
Definitely.
To be quiet until I was in a place where I knew I could be really, really loud and be heard.
Definitely. And this is like a controversial question, I think.
Okay.
But see it as me criticizing myself or someone like me.
Yeah. Okay.
But do you see the irony in a non-male DJ having to make a non-male DJ list for male promoters? Like how
it is messed up. It's like,
okay.
and I get messages twice. I'm going to say twice a week when there's events on, from people who ask me if I know any women that they should book for their, when I say women, I mean non-males, I mean everybody, like non-males, that they should book for their party because they tried looking on WIP and they couldn't really find. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I've done, like, me, Floss, and Gabby collectively have done so much work. It is incredibly ironic, and I don't even talk about it or mull on it, but like come on, people, like I've literally done this for you. It could not be easier. Like, and you're messaging me asking for a hand,
Yeah.
I don't get paid for WIP. It's cost me money, time, so much time.
Yes.
Like, I've never spoken about this really out loud, so I've never actually like done the math, but like people are so like, they don't even consider that, like and because I love it and it doesn't feel like work, it's so fine.
Yeah.
But like, if you actually broke it down, I've done all this work for these people
to DM you.
Like, it's not enough. It's like, what?
Oh, you poor
No,
thing.
it's not controversial. It's actually, it is so funny, and it is just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm white, cis, middle class, able-bodied person. I'm a woman, but like I've got a lot of privilege, and I, at this point in my life, have And when WIP started, I had capacity, had enough resources to create this, had Floss who was feeling the same. And it was like, I was more than happy to do that and do it myself. I wanted to do it myself. Like I knew that if I didn't, my feeling was from when the spreadsheet started, and like being really honest, I was like, if I don't do this, someone else is going to do it. And I want to do it first because I want to have control over it.
Yeah.
I want to do this how I think it should be done.
Yeah. And when I said controversial, I meant it in a way, I don't want it to come across as you shouldn't have done it or
No.
discrediting the work.
No. It doesn't at all. It's almost like, thank you for recognizing that. But also like, if I like, who else is going to do it? Then at the same time, like if a guy did it, like it might feel a little bit weird.
Yeah, I feel that.
If a guy did that, I'd be like, what the fuck, man? Like, so, you know.
Definitely. And I think to look at it at a more wholesome note, I think one of my favorite things about WIP is that it went from a spreadsheet to like a really distinct, it's not even like, I hate calling it a database because it's like, if you look at the socials, if you look at the website, you can merge, like it's a proper like home for artists.
Wow.
So how important was it a conscious thing to be like, I want to make this its own entity and like, I don't want to say brand, but you know what I mean by brand, like its own communal hub? Yes. Or did that just happen naturally because of, you know?
That was like a byproduct of what we created. And a lot of that has to do with Floss and Gabby. Like they are very
massive shout outs.
Massive, the biggest shout outs. They're I was very like one track minded in the project. Like I was like, my goal was like, I want to make a practical resource that like, I want the website to work really well. I want heaps of people on the database. Like I was really like focused on creating this kind of product. And it's interesting that I didn't even think that it could become a community. Like I didn't even really think about that. But as it started to grow, like then we're like, oh, we'll definitely need a Facebook group. So like made the Facebook group, and like as I observed all that growing, Gabby and Floss really nurtured that and encouraged me to nurture that. And yeah, now the community is almost, it's weird because the community is almost the main part of it.
Yeah.
Database is kind of, you know, just like attached to the community, and that has been so inspiring. Like watching people meet through it. I just sit in the Facebook group and watch everyone interact with each other. The fact that I don't have to facilitate it,
and it's natural.
It is, and it's become this kind of like ecosystem is so powerful and so incredible. So it definitely wasn't conscious. I mean, Floss and I did work quite a bit on the brand, and like I did want it to be like, I wanted it to be like discoverable, and I wanted like we worked on like even like the colors and like the website being like pretty, and we wanted to really like we did want to create a sort of brand and make it really accessible, yeah, and inviting. And we have actually, like, now that I talk about it, like we've consciously created a certain tone around it and sort of cultivated the community in a certain way, but it was definitely not on the original roadmap.
Yeah. Beautiful DJ Sarah. I just realized, actually no, we'll talk about it after, it'll be sweet. Balance, I think, is critical in everything, and I think this is when the conversation turns a bit lighthearted, I think. Actually no, not with this question actually. Balance, yeah, is so important, I think, especially in these chin stroker, like hardcore, I only listen to songs with under 1,000 streams sort of dance community, which I've literally quoted and said to you that I do. But I think that balance, like where we can both adore pop music and then enjoy club music, whereas I think so many people are so close-minded just to criticize the scene for once. So how important, like, I don't know if you see it as a super positive thing or it just happens naturally, But how important is it for you to be like balanced in your music listening, just generally? Because I think I'd get overcrowded by it.
I listen to so much music. Like when I say so much music, I don't mean like digging through Bandcamp all day. Like I listen to high
Digging
rotation.
through Bandcamp all day.
Well, you know, like I listen to so much music. I know all the cool tracks that came out on this record label. I'm so like out of touch in some ways, but like I'm really into like the indie pop scene. Like I love knowing like what locals are making music. I'm I listen to like a lot of like pop and sort of older like folky stuff and rock and like kind of everything and like music that people wouldn't think is like cool. But I don't think many people know that or like actually know what I listen to like when I'm just working or like running or every day.
Yeah.
So no one's really asked me this question, but like getting your head out of this tiny little scene is so important. Like there is a whole big wide big wide the music industry is not just, you know, our little tiny club scene and our like it, although that is just so incredible and so amazing and like, you know, all my half of my whole world.
Sarah, you're allowed to say that because we've literally bigged up the scene for an hour now. So you're allowed to say, but I think that's fair.
But get your head out of it. Like have a look around. Like don't disrespect the artists that have made it really big overseas. Don't disrespect pop artists. They've broken through into these scenes and they're doing incredible stuff, making incredible music. Maybe it's not your vibe or maybe you don't think it's cool because it's so popular, but like it's actually amazing. And then like if you look at like the labels or like the booking agencies or the management companies we have in Australia, you know, like the touring companies, the kind of shows that are going on, like it is incredible. Like, and I've really started to get more involved in sort of the broader music industry and found it just like so inspiring. And the people there are so amazing. I think that is one thing that like it's really important to just like not discredit people because they're in the mainstream. Like that is, it's just so mind-blowing to me.
Facts. I think that even the idea that a point of difference for you is that you're funny, like this says so much about like the culture. It's like, oh, Sarah's like her normal self on her stories, and it's like, whoa, how crazy, man. That's
Oh my
crazy.
god, she's like posting stuff about her day on her Instagram. Oh my
Right.
god, totally. I think it's really, I just think it's healthy to
Yeah.
like to just look at the bigger picture and respect the people that are like, you know, in the I call it like the real music industry, but like that's so bad.
It's so true. All right. Well, that conducts our formal conversation, but we've got some questions from some fans
Oh my
on
god.
Instagram. So shout out to everyone that asked a question. I can't get through all of them, but I'm going to pick out the best ones.
Oh my
Um,
god.
oh my God, Dazza, who DJs is deeper in Honey Point. She says, Pink or Avril Lavigne?
Oh, Avril. Straight up.
Interesting. Why?
I loved Avril Lavigne when I was young. It was one of my first, that Let Go album was one of my first albums. I bought on that album cover, shout outs to Deepa, she's wearing this like fugly outfit and then she's wearing this belt and it's a black belt. It's got like, and it's one of those belts where it's got like two prongs all the
Yeah.
way down. I made my mum buy me that from Big W when I was like 9, and it was my favorite piece of clothing because Avril Lavigne wore it on her album cover. So yeah, Avril.
I good big fan of the show. Paul Coppola asks, what she loves about attending as many events as possible.
Oh, seeing my friends,
Yeah.
seeing new music, making new friends,
And
um,
making new.
and shazamming other people's songs.
I think is the point there not for the same reason that everyone loves going to shows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, now we have my friend. Do you know Ogadog? Oscar runs Nomad Radio.
I'm not sure, but big fan of Nomad.
He asked what vape flavor you packing.
Controversial. I don't vape or smoke, and a lot of people think that I do. I think I give off like a ciggy energy. I don't smoke or vape. No.
Matthew Zoo asks dream venue to play at.
um, it would probably be overseas, and would probably be it's obviously the Berghain.
It's the only time you'll ever be able to get in.
I know, literally. It's my dream to just like walk to the front of the line with like a record bag and be like, no, I'm actually playing. Let me. I don't even have to play the set. I just want to get in.
Last, I think I know, we'll go one from Jungle Georgia asks, what's your favorite place to eat oysters?
We really love oysters. My favorite place to eat oysters is Carlton Wine Room with Georgia.
Oh. And then the last two questions I'm going to bundle together from Jungle Georgia again and Lex.deluxe.
Oh my God.
Same tinge. Jungle Georgia asks, is Sarah single and what's her type? And Lex.deluxe asks, I want to hit it. Give me tips.
Yes, I am currently single. Tips are just hit me up.
Be interested.
Also be single. That's it. Does that sound desperate?
No, not at all. And last question, which is sort of serious as well. Obviously, knowing we're on Zoom now for the next probably month or so, so we have access to everybody in the country.
Oh wow.
Just who do you think deserves a Parry Talks conversation? Who do you think I should learn off? Who would tell a good story? Who should I have on next?
Oh my God. Probably Gabby, who is aphrodisiac, who it works with us at WIP, but who is really just finding her way in the scene and has taught me a lot. And yeah, she's incredible. So I think Gabby.
Beautiful. I don't know how long that was. I haven't been timing. But
Neither, but honestly, what a great way to spend my Saturday morning.
Parry Talks, DJ Sarah. Thank you for listening out there. What was I going to say? Yeah, keep it. This one will be out on Tuesday. So we've got radio on Thursday. Tune into Nomad Radio. We've remixed our show format a little bit, so it's a bit more accessible with COVID and lockdowns and stuff. And it's absolutely awesome. I can't reveal too many details at the moment, but that's happening as well. And I know a lot of people have been hitting me up about the second compilation. We're getting the tracks mixed down now, so be patient, please. These things take time and money, but you will have new club tracks soon with some big names from across the country this time, not just Sydney. But Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for
Everyone,
having
keep it locked. Enjoy your lockdown.
me.